Hello everyone, welcome again to KuirthiyTV. As always, if you have not subscribed to the channel, then please subscribe to support the channel. You can also like the video and also share the video and invite other people to subscribe to the channel. So this video is about Stephen Par Kuol. He is now the interim chairman of the SPLM in opposition. That is led by Dr. Machar. So what I'm going to do in this video is to give some analysis, and I'll try to be as objective as I can be. And the reason why I'm doing this is because the perception people have of what he has done is based on partisanship and also ethnic allegiance. There are people who take what he's done at face value as bad, and at the same time there's some people who would take what he's done at face value as good. Mostly people who are allied with President Kiir and SPLM and government. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play some clips and give some commentaries. Some of the clips are self-explanatory. So I'm going to look at whether what he has done is something that is valuable for the SPLM in opposition and also for the people of South Sudan in terms of peace. And I'm also going to look at some of the fallacies and some of the assumptions he's made that can be counterproductive to SPLM in opposition, to South Sudan, and to peace in general. So in this video, he's talking about SPLM-IO commitment to peace, which I think is a positive thing.
On the SPLM-IO commitment to peace, the commitment to the revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in South Sudan, the SPLM-IO reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement, both in letter and in spirit. We believe that the agreement is the sole pathway to achieving lasting peace and reconciliation among the diverse communities of South Sudan.
I think we would agree with what he just said, that the agreement is maybe the best chance for South Sudan to be at peace if the agreement is implemented. But at least we agree with him that commitment to peace, not violence, and the agreement are the way to go. And the second clip, he is calling for the release of Vice President Machar, which is really fundamental. And I'll explain to you why that's really crucial.
The National Liberation Council urgently called for immediate release of SPLM-IO Chairman Dr. Machar and all comrades and detainees following the recent clashes in Nasir involving armed civilians and the South Sudan People Defense Forces.
So this is also crucial because he knows that Riek Machar cannot be replaced anyhow. So those of you from IO who are really worried, in the long run, maybe that's going to be a problem for IO. But he does understand that the position of Riek Machar is not that easy. The mistake that was committed by Taban Dengai when he replaced Riek Machar, it was different. So Par Kuol is not committing the same thing. He's not saying he has replaced Riek Machar completely. He's not saying that. And he knows that would be foolhardy. So that's why he's calling for the release of Dr. Riek Machar to take a peace position. So he's not that stupid. He knows. And I've said this several times that Riek Machar as an individual, he's a weak leader. That I have always said. But we have to understand, Riek Machar has become bigger than an individual. He has become an institution. He has become a political consciousness to people who believe he stands for something they believe in. There are many Nuer people, not all Nuer people, and I must emphasize this. There are many Nuer people who see him as a symbol of resistance to the Jeng people. There are also non-Nuer, non-Jeng, especially in the Equatorians, who also see him as a symbol of resistance to the Jeng dominance, because there's no any other political figure in South Sudan, whether in the Equatorians or anywhere else in South Sudan, who is like Riek Machar. So his position is not just about him as an individual, and that's something we must remember. The SPLM government doesn't want to notice that, but the sooner they notice, the better. Stephen Par Kuol notices that. The next clip, he's talking about something that I don't understand what he's talking about.
The SPLM-IO leadership urged the peace parties involved in the ongoing military offensive to create an environment conducive to peaceful dialogues. The
parties to the agreement include SPLM-IO. So I'm not sure what other parties. If he's referencing the White Army, that the White Army wasn't a signatory to the agreement. So I'm not sure what he says, what he's saying. But if he's talking about SPLM-IO, unless there's another SPLM-IO that is not part of, that is fighting the government of South Sudan, that is fighting the SSPDF. But as many of the SPLM-IO officials have said, it's just the White Army, civilians. And he actually says in one of the videos, he actually said that it's just armed civilians. So when he says that SPLM-IO is asking party to the agreement to stop the fighting, I don't know what he's talking about. This is something that is confusing. We may have to ask him to explain what that means. So in the next video, he's talking about the legitimacy of removing Riek Machar, because you cannot just decide and say, oops, we're removing Riek Machar. There has to be some formality. There has to be some procedure that has to be followed, some constitutional provisions that are provided for within the SPLM-IO party.
The NLC that has just taken this decision is the second largest organ of the party that function between sessions, before and after the convention, which is the largest organ of the party. It is the lawmaking body of the SPLM-IO party. So the decision is legitimate and constitutional.
So he's saying there's some sort of legitimacy. So what I would have expected is for him to talk about what is the percentage of the officials in the NLC who are not present, and what is the effect of that. So what is percentage-wise, I would be interested. Is it 60%, 70%, 80% of those who voted? I would be interested in knowing that, because that would actually go towards proving the legitimacy argument. So if the people present were less than those who are absent, then that would be a problem. I'm not sure how many people are in the National Liberation Council of SPLM-IO. I don't know. So those of you who are in the IO would tell us. But I would be interested in looking at the statistics to sort of give some legitimacy to what he's saying. Here's a very important argument that is, or accusation that has been labeled at him, that what has happened is a coup.
As whether this decision or the deliberation we have just completed to produce this resolution is a coup or not, the question we will ask, coup against who? Because what we are hearing in the media is that it is coup against our chairman. You have seen the banner behind us. That is portrait of our chairman, Dr. Riek Machar, who has remained chairman of this party until the next convention, according to our constitution. Do you see any coup here?
So he's making it clear that what is happening here is not a complete replacement of Dr. Riek Machar. So this is provisional. It's temporary until he's released and assumes his position, or until the convention removes him or reaffirms his position. So he knows that there's not something that you can just say. And he also knows that Riek Machar's name is specifically mentioned in the revitalized peace agreement. So this is something valuable for IO members to remember. He's not downplaying the importance of Riek Machar. He's not a fool. He knows that. So this is something that is crucial for people to understand. And it also has implications for SPLM and government, those who want to get rid of Dr. Riek Machar from the political scene completely. The next clip I'm going to play, he seems to be confused as to who to blame.
What we have done is to resolve this leadership crisis that has been created by the crisis that comes as a result of detention of our chairmen.
See, he's even stuttering. He doesn't want to blame the government directly. So he's saying the crisis was created by a crisis that was a result of the arrest of Dr. Riek Machar. But who did? Who arrested Riek Machar? He's not saying that. So it's that fear. So if he talks like people like Oyed has fled, he's not in the country. So he's afraid he may also follow suit, being arrested. So I understand. And that also speaks to the assumption he's making that I'm going to talk about. What is really interesting in the first part that I've just showed is that he knows Riek Machar is fundamental to the peace agreement. So he's not just going to say, oh, no, we're replacing Riek Machar and to hell with him. No, he's not going to do that. What Taban Dengai did in the past, he's not going to make the same mistake. He knows that. So he's also cognizant of the way the Nuer people feel about Riek Machar. The supporters of Riek Machar within the SPLM-IO, even if they are not from the Nuer community, he knows the feelings to it. So he's not foolhardy. So that's the positive part of it. The other positive part is he's making it clear that SPLM-IO is for peace, that they're not for violence. He's also talking about dialogue. SPLM and government is not talking about dialogue. They just want to win. Whatever they want to win, I don't know. They're fighting the White Army. The White Army is just a non-state actor. And the more you focus on the White Army, you're focusing on a tribe, because the White Army is an ethnic army. So the more you kill them, you're not killing just the average anti-state actor. You're killing an ethnic group. That's what they don't understand. And that's why I said they have to think about making sure this is resolved peacefully. Because the more you behave that way, the more you're going to be accused of ethnic cleansing. So this emphasis on peace, on releasing Dr. Riek Machar, because that's what he's saying. If he was interested in saying, I am going to replace him, he would not be calling for the release. But I understand this is politics. He may just playing lip service so that people calm their fears. And then he has a play within a play. That I understand. But at least from the PR standpoint, this is good for SPLM-IO. It says there's still a party. It says your leader is still there. He's not replaced. He also reflects them as the party of violence. So this is good for SPLM-IO. It's also good for the people of South Sudan because it gives us some pretensions to stability, that we're not going to war. So the more people like Par speak, the more people will realize at least we're not going to war. The international community that seems to flame crisis in Africa will realize there's some sort of stability. So you may not like what he's doing. What he's doing may be a play within a play to replace Riek Machar completely. He's, for example, to be decreed as the first vice president, and then his name enters into the agreement. That is a possibility, but that would be a direct violation of the agreement. So President Kiir is not going to do that. But at least it's something that is good for the people of South Sudan, provisionally at least. All right? So that is a positive aspect of it. So let us just try to look at things sometimes objectively. Even if you don't like some things about someone, try to see if there's something positive. Even if you don't like the individual, you don't like their politics, is there something positive they're doing? To acknowledge that. That's just about being an adult. So, before I go to the next section where I talk about the negative aspect of what Stephen Parr has done, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed to the channel so far. So thank you. Now, let's go to the negative side of this. Because he's making a lot of assumption For example, he's talking about the implementation of the agreement. President Kiir has never been interested in implementing the agreement. So why does he think that the president will now be interested in implementing the agreement? Why? After what happened? Now let's listen to some of the things he's said in the past against the president and about the implementation.
If you take the case of South Sudan, the reason why we are being at war with each other since 2013 is because we have a tyrant who does not want to give political space for others to participate. Salva Kiir has been a record all along, even after we signed the agreement, that he cannot implement this agreement. It's a bad agreement.
So why does he think that President Kiir will somehow implement the agreement? Unless President Kiir wants to get rid of Riek Machar and say, okay, the best way to get rid of Riek Machar is to say, here's a new leader, I'm going to work with them, and I'm going to implement the agreement. That means the problem isn't Kiir Mayardit and the agreement, it's Riek Machar. So he can do that. It's another way to get rid of Riek Machar. To say, here's Stephen Par Kuol, I can work with them, we're going to implement the agreement. And goes ahead and implement the agreement. That would get rid of Riek Machar. So that may be a possibility. But he knows that Kiir Mayardit is not interested. So why would he think he's going to change now? But for those of you who are afraid about his sort of political machination he's doing, or whether he's not well being paid, he still knows. What he's saying in this video, in this clip about Riek Machar, he still maintains that that's why he's not talking about a permanent removal of Riek Machar. Because he knows he still values his leadership. Take a listen.
Well, you know, if you look at Dr. Riek Machar and make comparison between Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, you will see the fine line between dictatorship and leadership.
So he's saying that Riek Machar has leadership and Kiir Mayardit is a dictator. So he knows the difficulties of working with Kiir Mayardit. He's also Stephen Par Kuol 6 years ago.
In July 2016, he attempted assassination on our chairman, Dr. Riek Machar. Then people went back to war. We have signed a number of agreements since December last year. None of them has been implemented. And the government is still on the offensive even today. Until this morning, they attacked our position.
Listening to you, it tells me that this revitalized peace deal is nowhere near implementation.
No, we have implemented our part as opposition, but the government has not honored even a single promise.
So he knows. He knows the history of violations. He knows that they do their parts and the government doesn't implement the provisions that are supposed to be implemented by the government. So the assumption that things will somehow change and there will be implementation of the agreement when the agreement should have ended a while ago and it has been extended twice. So that should say something to him. So here's Michael McQuay speaking about the fact that this agreement was not supposed to be implemented.
We have ever been saying that this agreement was not actually meant to be fully implemented. Otherwise, the time frame which was allocated for that is not sufficient and not possible to really implement the agreement as it is.
So first, I must admit that the argument by Michael McQuay that the agreement was not meant to be implemented is nonsensical. But I do understand that the way South Sudanese were treated by IGAD leaders was disrespectful. It was almost like infantilizing them, forcing them, threatening them. So when President Kiir did not sign the agreement, I agreed with him because it was not respectful. But when McQuay says that the agreement was not meant to be implemented, I wonder what he means, because if he says the agreement is not implemented because the time frame was short, fine. How about the 2 postponements they have had? Wasn't that time enough for them to implement? So that is a nonsensical argument. But it also raises something else for Stephen Par Kuol, that the arguments that are given, the justifications that are used by SPLM and government, like Michael McQuay just did, presuppose that these people are not interested in implementing the agreement. But still, look at what Stephen Par Kuol says in response to Michael McQuay.
But I disagree respectfully with the idea that the agreement was not signed to be implemented.
No, it was not meant to be implemented. He's saying
it was meant to be implemented. The agreement was meant to be implemented. It was signed to be implemented. And it has to be implemented by Artigono.
So this is something I've observed, and I've spoken about this. I've written about this several times, that SPLM-IO seems to assume that if something is true, then everyone else must see it and must accept it. It's the same approach. So when he says the agreement was signed to be implemented and it must be implemented, he's talking about theoretical perception of things. Michael McQuay, who is part of SPLM-IG, and they have the power to determine whether the agreement is implemented or not, is saying the agreement was not meant to be implemented. And Par is saying, yeah, it was meant to be implemented in ideal condition, and when we have all optimal conditions met, when the two parties are in line, they're in sync, they have the same ideas about themselves or similar ideas, or they respect themselves, and even if they don't respect themselves, they value the lives of South Sudanese, then they would be interested in implementing. But McQuay is very clear that they are not interested in implementing the agreement. Now, the next clip I'm going to play shows you that what happened in Nasser, the death of General Machar, and the events leading to that were not engineered by SPLM-IO. I know SPLM-IO is not innocent. They have some contributions to the problem, but the problems were engineered by SPLM in government. It's through the SSPDF.
My name is Colonel Lampol Gabriel. I'm the spokesperson of the SPLMIO. Not supposed to have this press here. We are still implementing the agreement, and I'm supposed to be in bill from being a soldier, but not in the office of the first vice president. But since the implementation is very slow, my commander-in-chief is still Dr. Machar. That gives me the privilege to still be around him until we complete the unification.
There were many people, especially the Minister of Defense and the Chief of General Staff, and also the now Governor of Jonglei State. They spoke about having two armies, and that one country should not have two armies. I've spoken about that in other videos. That was nonsense because there's an agreement. But what he is saying in this video is that he should be in Milpam, integrated into the SSPDF after the agreement is completely finalized and the two armies are integrated. But the agreement has not been implemented. So that's why he's still speaking on behalf of SPLM-IO army. He shouldn't be. That's what he's saying. So the reason why he's not in Milpam and in the office of the first vice president is because the agreement has not been implemented. So it's not that the SPLM-IG doesn't know, SSPDF doesn't know, or SPLM-IO doesn't know. It's that the conditions are not met for the two armies to be integrated. Now he's going to speak on the violations later on. But before I go back to Gabriel Lam, I'm going to show you some videos about why it is really, really difficult for the two men to work together.
The peace come to South Sudan, you better ask Riek Machar. Because for me, I'm for peace. I have never attacked him in his position. He's the one attacking.
But you'll have to compromise, won't you? You'll have to compromise. You'll have to
I don't
negotiate.
compromise alone. I compromise when I talk to somebody and he understands me.
This is crucial. I don't compromise alone. I compromise with somebody and he understands me. That is really vital. Now, a few months later, they signed an agreement. And then Riek was ready to sign with him. But this is what Riek says after President Kiir refused to sign the agreement.
We had hoped President Kiir was going to sign. In actual fact, I didn't know that he was not going to sign. Because when I came to the room, I met him here, greeted him before we signed. But then, after 10 minutes, I was told he wasn't signing. I couldn't find any explanation because he had it all.
He sounds surprised. He knows that President Kiir doesn't like him. President Kiir is not interested in being in the same government with Riek Machar. Riek knows this. I'm not sure why he speaks as if he doesn't know. But the reason why I'm showing you this is the attitude SPLM-IO officials have. They seem to believe that somehow something may change and the agreement will be implemented. It will not be implemented. So what Par is doing is not going to go anywhere. Unless if he's interested in what I said earlier, that President Kiir may decree him as the next first vice president and then get rid of Riek Machar, because that is what Kiir wants. And it's not just only Kiir Mayardit. Most of the Jiang elite, they don't want Riek Machar. They are afraid. It's like if he becomes president, he's going to turn or use the Nuer to mistreat the Jiang people. Something that I think is highly unlikely. And you've seen when Riek Machar was vice president, starting with apologizing to the Jiang and Jonglei. So, and I'll go back to Lam.
I'll be talking on the intentional violation of the transitional security arrangement that has been happening beginning early January to yesterday. On 12th of February 2025, that was yesterday, there has been an aggressive attack on the SPLMIO cantonment site of Lirangu in western Equatorial State by the SSPDF under the command of General James Nando. The SPLMIO force had to tactically withdraw to a safer location with no single casualty or injury. However, of course, they had to desert the training center or the cantonment site for fear of losing their lives and destroying also the properties. Yesterday, there was a JDB meeting. In the JDB, that question was raised as to why is there a violation in the cantonment site of the SPLMIO. However, the SSPDF denied their participation in the clashes, labeling it as a tribal war between the Azande and the Balanda tribes. However, there was a video that was shot in the cantonment site, and in that video we were able to see how Brigadier James Nando with his bodyguards celebrated the capture of Lirangu cantonment site by the SSPDF. So technically the SSPDF participated in the violation of yesterday but denied it. At the same time, there was also evidence that showed how they participated in it. That is one. Two, expansion of territory by the SSPDF through dismantling the SPLMIO assembly areas in western Equatoria and western Baragazal in the name of removing illegal checkpoints. This is started on the 12th of January 2025 to the 2nd of February 2025. We have seen series of attacks. It started from Kubribo to Ngolamva, western Baragazal, and proceeded up to Jur River on the 2nd, in complete violation of the agreement. It should be noted that the SPLMIO did not refuse to close down the so-called illegal checkpoints. The challenge was that there was no consensus reached between the SSPDF command and the SPLMIO command on the modalities to be used to close down those checkpoints.